Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hype, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hype 2. I hope you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So, in the previous video that I did was on Mets shortstop Francisco Lindor, and I talked about how he bowed after a replay was overturned on the field. He threw a ball to first base on a bang-bang play, and instead of just saying, "Thank you very much," he took a bow. I thought at the time, I didn't think much of it, but then as I thought about it over the course of the next day, I thought that was very classless, and it sort of goes to this sort of lack of maturity with this player and seriousness with this player. Just so you know, I've been very fair to the player over the last year. When things started falling apart, I did not point the finger at him. Now, the first few years that the Mets have had him, I've been very critical of him, critical of his attitude, critical just of his seriousness of wanting to be here with the Mets. Contract aside, prior to the Mets trade for him, I was sort of very lukewarm on the deal because I did not want to see the Mets repeat a mistake that they've made in the past, where they made a big trade with the Cleveland organization that they've done over the last 25 years. As you know, you're a Met fan, the Mets made a disastrous trade of Carlos Baerga. They traded Baerga for, back then, Jeff Kent and Jose Vizcaino. Those guys had very good careers, and as you know, Jeff Kent is a borderline Hall of Famer. And Baerga basically was a shell of the player that he was with the Mets, that he was with the Indians at the time. At the time when the Mets got him, it was a very exciting time, but then he did nothing. He was a good defensive player, believe it or not, but he didn't hit a lick. He did nothing offensively. 10 years later, or 6 years later, the Mets made the trade for Robbie Alomar with the Indians. And again, he was a shell of himself. He wasn't the Hall of Famer that he was with Baltimore, San Diego, the Blue Jays, and obviously with Cleveland. So now, third time around, I was thinking Mets should stay away from him because Cleveland does not do a bad job. When they have a star, they let him go. They let him walk. They trade him. They let him go to free agency. If you notice, they did not do that with Jose Ramirez, and Ramirez has been good. Has continued to be a very good player since Lindor left. So his ability has not changed. So their ability as an organization to evaluate their own players is very strong. It's been strong for a long time. So just the fact that they were willing to move him, even on a contract year, and even though he turned down a contract from them, they still moved him. They still took a chance to move him. Now, in that trade, the Mets sent two minor league pitchers, Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez. I was not too happy that Jimenez was in that deal because I thought he was a good player. He was a winning player. He was a fundamentally sound player, and I liked his defense, and he was very good. And he's turned out to be a pretty good major leaguer over the last few years. Now, a couple of things. Francisco Lindor is now in the 4th season with the New York Mets as the shortstop. Okay, his numbers speak for themselves. His batting average is 30 points lower than it was with the Guardians, Indians, whatever. 20 points lower in terms of his on-base percentage. His slugging percentage is way, way down, 40 points under what he had there. His OPS is kind of the same, 118 to 113 with the Mets. So that's kind of even. But really, his numbers are in decline. He's now 30 years old. Now, the biggest mistake of that trade, the biggest mistake of the acquisition wasn't the trade. The biggest mistake was giving him the long-term contract. Now, if you make a trade for a player like him, you're basically telling everybody that you're going to want to sign him. But this is a guy who's coming from a small market. He had played in a small market his whole career. They knew the player. They had no problem letting him go, and no problem trading him. How was a guy that's been in a small market, how is he going to be able to handle the big lights and the bright lights of the big city of New York, and the pressure of being a Met, pressure of being in Citi Field, the pressure of being one of the guys that has a massive contract in Major League Baseball? How is he going to handle that? Well, he hasn't handled it well. The first year he got hurt, but we know what happened at the end of that year with the thumbs down. That's not been forgotten here. A lot of people have been writing to me talking about that, how upset they were. I was very livid, very angry about it, because it was real disrespect to us as fans, because he was ticked off that the fans were booing him because he wasn't performing well. That was a major problem that I saw going forward. And my attitude was, well, they need to bring in somebody to sort of get him to relax a little bit, to sort of take away some of the pressure. Now, in 2022, he had a good year. 23 put up numbers, but he put the numbers up after the Mets basically were out of the race. The Mets were desperate for production in June, and they got nothing out of him. And we can talk about other players. I'll talk about other players on this club and other videos, but this is all about Francisco Lindor as a player. And he seems to be the kind of player, the way he carries himself on the field. He says all the right things, but I don't think he necessarily believes it. I think it's kind of just sort of patent answers that he believes in his team. He thinks about the Mets. He thinks that they're going to turn it around, but I don't think he believes it. And also there's some things about him I don't care for. I don't care for his politics. I think the politics has been very quiet since really after that first year. But the politics and the sort of the hair and the sort of constant smiling, the constant not, it's a lot of sort of weird kind of buffoonery that sort of goes around him. It took him over a year to get Jeff McNeil a car. Even though he promised McNeil a car, it took him over a year to get him a car. You're making millions of dollars, man. Get this guy a car. You can get a car within a week. But for some reason, it took him over a year. It sort of took me to do videos on it, and for people to still talk about how he showed disrespect to his teammate, even though he doesn't get along with the teammate. And then, of course, we can't forget about the fight that he had with McNeil after they came off the field. And instead of saying owning it, they had a disagreement on the field about where they were going to be. Instead, they were talking about some stupid, what was it, a raccoon, a bunch of bullshit. A really childish nonsense, which kind of goes to what we saw on Monday with him bowing. Just say thank you, wave your hat, thank you for the replay. That was it. He didn't do that. He sort of had to do a bow. It's buffoonery. It's childishness. It's not something that is mature on the field. And if you've been a Met fan for a long time, you know mature players. You know players that take the game seriously, take winning seriously, take winning in New York seriously. He does not do that. And in fact, this group doesn't take it seriously, or they're incapable of doing it, incapable of really not only recognizing the seriousness of the situation, so the urgency of the situation. They don't have the ability to sort of seize the moment. Some of these players are incapable of doing it. And I think Lindor is incapable of doing it in this setting. Maybe in a small market, he's able to do it. He was able to do it in Cleveland. He killed the Yankees in postseason. Okay, he's a big Yankee killer, especially in postseason. But he hasn't been able to sort of carry that bravado, that sort of sense of urgency with the Mets. It's just not there. So that's why, in my view, looking back on it, and I thought at the time, making the deal with him, trading for him, signing him to this 10-year deal was a mistake. This has been a major mistake by this organization. And I would hope that the Mets are able to rectify it, correct it. How do you correct it? You get the player out of here. Because I don't think the Mets are going to be successful now with him. This might be a rebuild situation now, because if Stearns decides that this group isn't going to cut it, he has to go. Based upon his age, he's 30 years old. Now they expect to contend next year. How do they do that? They signed Juan Soto. That's a good start. The one thing about Soto, you'll say, is you can tell already that he loves playing in New York. He loves it here with the Yankees. And the Yankees have done something smart, folks. They've not rushed in to sign him not knowing that he can handle the city. Lindor has shown he can't handle it here. He showed in the first year he couldn't handle it. He couldn't take the pressure. He was complaining about the fans. He was disrespectful to us. We spent all the money to watch these guys play, and you thumbs down on us, thumbs down to you. Boo on you. And then the idea he's bowing and looking like he's having a grand old time in Cleveland. You should have stayed in Cleveland, asshole. The Guardians gave you a contract offer. You should have taken it. Stay where you should have been comfortable. If you were comfortable there and happy there, you should have stayed there. You shouldn't have come here and signed a 10-year deal with the Mets. Now, the mistake the Mets made is they were so quick to do it, and I said that a few times over the last few years, they were too quick to sign him. They should have let him play the first season out, see how he liked it, see how it worked out. Now they're kind of stuck with the contract and having to pay this asshole all this money. Obviously, after the 21 season, there were a lot of good free agents. Corey Seager was a free agent. Again, eventually, Javi Baez became a free agent. Marcus Semien. All these guys that are good professional shortstops. I know Baez has played poorly, and it didn't work out here. But I'm just using him as an example. Just using, there was a big market for shortstops. And the Mets were so quick to sign Lindor. Why? I couldn't understand that. And as it turned out, I was right. I was right again. I was right. I hate being right. This is just the beginning for Lindor with these videos. So if you want me to keep goofing on Francisco Lindor, I'm going to keep doing it. Because I'm tired of watching the way he plays. I will say this. His defense has been very good the first 3 seasons here. He should have won a Gold Glove last year, to be honest with you. But his defense has taken a step back this year. Although he made a good play, he made a great play in Tampa. For the most part, his defense has been average to poor. And I would give you a statistical thing. The Mets are negative 28 runs. 28 defensive runs lost. So they're a bad defensive team. I don't know what his defensive runs lost or saved or whatever. Defensive runs saved, negative 28. It means they've lost 28 runs due to bad defense. I don't know what his defensive score is. I know his wins above replacement is under 1, is 0.7 according to Baseball Reference. But I don't know where that is in terms of his offense or his defense. But you get the point. I want him out of here. Okay. The money is the money you get. I mean, if Cohen wants to do what he did with Scherzer and Verlander, so be it. But he cannot stay here. This group has to be gone. But that's another video on the other channel. But on this channel, we're going to talk a lot about Lindor specifically because I'm not a fan of his. I never was. And I hate being right about a player. I didn't think it was going to work out here because the guy is too soft for this town. And he's not serious about winning. So, thank you for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button. Have a good night. Have a good day. And I'll see you later.